Hello, friends! Are you ready to explore the fascinating world of Arctic Blast? Released on December 28, 2010, this film has sparked endless discussions. And today, we're bringing you all the hidden gems, stunning details, and unforgettable moments. If you enjoy this deep dive, be sure to hit that like button. It really helps our channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more exciting movie explorations. Let's jump right in and uncover the magic together. Movie Introduction and Overview of Arctic Blast, 2010. Released on December 28, 2010, Arctic Blast isn't just another disaster movie. It's a chilling reminder of nature's terrifying power. This made-for-TV film may have flown under the radar for some, but it captured the attention of many for its daring premise, explosive visuals, and the suspense it builds as the plot unfolds. Unlike the typical natural disasters that wreak havoc through earthquakes or hurricanes, Arctic Blast ventures into the uncharted territory of a global freeze caused by a solar storm. A concept that might sound outlandish at first, but is executed with enough intensity to make audiences feel the cold creeping up on them. In this deep dive, we'll examine what makes Arctic Blast stand out, not only for its nail-biting story but also for its character-driven drama. The film isn't just about watching chaos unfold. It's about human survival against a backdrop of an unforgiving, icy apocalypse. So, why should you stick around to learn more about Arctic Blast? It's not just the plot twists and unexpected turns that make this film worth exploring, but its deeply emotional journey that pulls you into the heart of the disaster, giving you much more than a simple fight for survival. The film opens with a sense of impending doom, setting the stage for the havoc that will unfold. In the farthest reaches of Antarctica, a group of scientists discovers an anomaly, an unusual solar storm that could cause catastrophic changes to Earth's climate. What begins as a subtle anomaly quickly escalates into a catastrophic event that threatens the entire planet. As the film progresses, viewers are drawn into a world where the usual dangers, hurricanes, floods, and wildfires, are replaced by something far more sinister and relentless. Freezing temperatures that plunge every corner of the globe into an unstoppable ice age. The premise alone sets Arctic Blast apart from typical disaster flicks. While the idea of a solar storm triggering an ice age may seem far-fetched, the film presents it with a sense of urgency and plausibility that keeps us on edge. As temperatures drop at an alarming rate, entire cities are frozen over in a matter of hours, with even the smallest exposure to the cold proving deadly. This isn't just a disaster. It's a race against time to survive an extinction-level freeze, forcing characters to make impossible choices in the face of global annihilation. But what truly sets Arctic Blast apart from other disaster films is its ability to balance the catastrophic spectacle with a deeply human story. The film centers on Jack Tate, a scientist played by Xander Berkeley, who works in an Antarctic research station. When the solar storm triggers an uncontrollable drop in temperatures, Jack finds himself at the epicenter of the disaster, trying to make sense of the rapidly changing world. But his journey is far from solitary. As Jack's estranged family, including his wife and children, struggle to survive in a world frozen solid by the storm, the film shifts its focus to personal stakes. This isn't just about battling nature. It's about reconnecting with loved ones and fighting for survival in the face of an icy hell. As the freeze spreads, cities are abandoned, the infrastructure of society crumbles, and chaos reigns. What makes Arctic Blast stand out is the unique focus on the destruction caused by the cold. The film doesn't rely on the typical special effects that depict raging fires or deadly floods. Instead, it presents the slow, inexorable freeze that covers the planet, turning every building, every street, every vehicle into a frozen tomb. The striking visuals of entire cities being engulfed by ice are haunting, giving the film a sense of isolation and vulnerability that lingers long after the credits roll. The suspense escalates quickly as the cold grows stronger, and Jack Tate must make his way to the frozen cities to rescue his family. In a series of tight, suspense-filled sequences, Jack confronts the devastating effects of the storm and faces some of the toughest decisions of his life. His mission to save his loved ones is complicated by the increasingly harsh conditions, with frozen landscapes creating an additional layer of peril. The tension builds to a point where it's unclear whether the characters will survive the freeze, and this uncertainty is one of the key elements that make Arctic Blast so gripping. Alongside the threat of the cold, the film introduces us to the scientific and moral dilemmas faced by those trying to stop the storm. As Jack races to find a solution to reverse the icy apocalypse, he discovers that the storm's origins may be far more complicated than anyone first realized. This adds a layer of intrigue to the plot, as Jack is not only battling the ice but also uncovering secrets that could hold the key to reversing the freeze. The narrative twists and turns as Jack uncovers information that might just change the course of the disaster. These unexpected revelations create suspense and intrigue, keeping viewers hooked and invested in the outcome. The performances in Arctic Blast play a critical role in elevating the film. Xander Berkeley brings depth and intensity to his role as Jack Tate, capturing the emotional turmoil of a man trying to save his family while grappling with the enormity of the disaster. His portrayal of a scientist under pressure adds a layer of realism to the movie, grounding the more fantastical elements in human emotion. The supporting cast, including the characters closest to Jack, provide the emotional beats that humanize the otherwise cold, destructive landscape. The film may be filled with frigid visuals, but it's the characters' warmth and resolve that make the story resonate. But no disaster movie would be complete without its thrilling moments, and Arctic Blast certainly delivers. The film doesn't shy away from high-stakes action. There are moments of near escape, where characters battle the elements and face impossible odds, pushing the tension to unbearable levels. The ice itself becomes a character in its own right, menacing and relentless, chasing down our protagonists with every step they take. The visual effects, while not as polished as those seen in bigger-budget Hollywood productions, still manage to capture the immensity and terror of the disaster. The use of practical effects, such as the creation of frozen landscapes and icy environments, adds a level of authenticity to the film that makes the danger feel all too real. Arctic Blast succeeded in capturing audiences' attention because it took a concept that could have easily been dismissed as absurd and turned it into a thrilling and suspenseful ride. The film presents a scenario that is both awe-inspiring and terrifying, showing how quickly the world could change when a natural disaster like this occurs. It's a film about survival, resilience, and the strength of human will in the face of an almost insurmountable threat. But beyond the surface-level disaster, the film explores themes of love, sacrifice, and the bonds that keep us going even when the world is freezing over. As viewers, we are constantly forced to confront the fragility of life as the characters navigate their way through a world that is slowly being consumed by ice. The film's pacing, which balances action with quiet moments of reflection, keeps the tension high while allowing us to connect with the characters and their emotional struggles. And as the movie reaches its climax, it delivers on its promise, bringing the threads of suspense, mystery, and drama to a satisfying, though heartbreaking, conclusion. In the end, Arctic Blast is not just about the apocalyptic event it portrays. It's about the people who must endure it. It's a film that asks us how we would react if faced with the end of everything we know. Would we fight for survival, or would we succumb to the inevitable? With its emotional depth, intriguing plot, and stunning visuals, Arctic Blast captivates viewers from start to finish, leaving them questioning the power of nature and the strength of the human spirit. Arctic Blast might not have made a huge splash at the box office, but its bold premise and gripping storytelling have earned it a special place in the hearts of disaster movie fans. If you enjoy films that combine high stakes with emotional depth, unexpected twists, and a chilling atmosphere, Arctic Blast is worth a closer look. Its legacy as an underrated gem of the disaster genre is cemented, and its unique take on the classic end-of-the-world narrative ensures it will remain memorable for those who dare to watch. So, why should you dive into the world of Arctic Blast? Because this is more than just a movie about a disaster. It's a story of survival, love, and human endurance in the face of an unstoppable force of nature. It's a chilling exploration of what happens when the world turns cold, and it will leave you thinking long after the credits roll. If you're ready to experience the fear and thrill of an Ice Age apocalypse, Arctic Blast is waiting for you. In the icy, desolate expanse of Antarctica, the stage is set for a disaster unlike any the world has ever seen. Arctic Blast, 2010, directed by Jason Bourque, opens with a quiet, unassuming sense of scientific curiosity, a calm before the storm. But this piece quickly shatters as the true extent of the impending danger becomes clear. It's a slow, deliberate build-up, designed to draw us in before plunging us into a chilling world of survival, loss, and discovery. The first half of the film does a remarkable job of setting up the premise, introducing key characters, and creating the sense of foreboding that will eventually reach a boiling point. We are not just witnessing a disaster unfold, we are becoming a part of it. The story begins with Jack Tate, played by Xander Berkeley, a seasoned scientist stationed in Antarctica. Jack's life is one of routine, marked by days spent in isolation as part of an international research program. Jack, a dedicated and methodical individual, is focused on his work, though we quickly sense a strain in his personal life. His relationships, especially with his wife and children, are distant, underscored by an unspoken tension that simmers just beneath the surface. Jack's emotional world is as cold as the environment around him, and his inner conflict will play a pivotal role as the events of the film unfold. It is in this quiet, reserved setting that the first inkling of the coming catastrophe begins to form. Jack and his team of researchers are in Antarctica to study a peculiar solar anomaly, a solar storm that, according to their initial findings, could potentially have global implications. It starts innocently enough, with the group discussing the odd patterns in the sun's behavior. There is an air of scientific curiosity, as the researchers try to decipher the strange solar event. They are unaware, however, that the storm is far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The first half of the film masterfully conveys the sense that something is wrong but allows the true scale of the threat to build slowly. What begins as a minor, curious anomaly quickly escalates into a deadly crisis. The first major signal comes when a sudden surge in solar activity triggers unexpected, severe changes in the Earth's atmosphere. A massive shift begins, creating a catastrophic cooling effect across the globe. The air grows colder, the wind picks up, and the entire environment starts to shift dramatically. The research team's initial confusion turns to panic as they realize they are witnessing the beginning of a global disaster. But it's too late. What's happening cannot be reversed, and the freeze is not just local. It's sweeping the planet at an alarming rate. The team is trapped in Antarctica, isolated from the rest of the world, unable to fully comprehend the magnitude of what is happening. Back in the United States, we meet Jack's wife, Heather, played by a talented supporting actress, and their 2 children. The tension between Jack and Heather is palpable, as their marriage has been marked by distance and misunderstandings. Jack's work has often taken precedence over family, and this has created a growing emotional gap. Heather, now managing the household and raising their children on her own, begins to feel the weight of her own isolation. Their relationship has fractured, and though they still care for each other, it's clear that Jack's absence has left a significant void. As the solar storm spreads, their quiet family dynamic is about to be shattered in ways neither of them could have anticipated. At first, the sudden changes in the world's climate are subtle. The power grid begins to fail, with localized power outages as the temperature starts to plummet. The initial signs of an impending disaster are small, almost imperceptible. But soon, these signs become impossible to ignore. The temperature continues to drop, and we witness a terrifying moment when the first major freeze begins to take hold. The film uses these early scenes to establish its tone, a sense of creeping dread, where something awful is clearly coming, but the characters remain unaware of just how bad things will get. The chilling visuals of a world gripped by cold provide a stark contrast to the warm, bustling lives that people once took for granted. It's a reminder that nature, when provoked, is unstoppable and unforgiving. As the freeze begins to spread, the focus shifts back to Jack and his team in Antarctica. They are now fully aware of the scope of the disaster, but they are powerless to stop it. The cold grows rapidly stronger, and Jack's role as a scientist suddenly takes on new urgency. His mission shifts from research to survival, as he works desperately to figure out how to halt the deadly freeze before it consumes the entire world. Jack's calm, rational demeanor begins to crack under the weight of the disaster, and we see him start to make rash decisions in his quest for a solution. His determination to fix the situation begins to consume him, and it is clear that the pressure is mounting. Meanwhile, Heather and the children are dealing with the chaos on the home front. As the cold intensifies, they are forced to take action to survive. What starts as a suburban nightmare slowly turns into an apocalyptic reality, with people scrambling to find warmth and shelter as the freeze spreads. Heather's ability to stay calm in the face of danger is put to the test, as she fights to keep her family safe. Her character arc is driven by a deep, maternal instinct, and she becomes a crucial emotional anchor for the story. Her interactions with her children are filled with moments of tenderness, but also an undercurrent of desperation as the world around them begins to collapse. Heather's journey mirrors the broader human struggle to survive in an increasingly hostile world. As the first half of the film unfolds, we begin to see moments that foreshadow larger developments. The tension between Jack and his wife is one of the early emotional beats that hints at the film's deeper themes of family, sacrifice, and survival. The devastating cold itself becomes a metaphor for their fractured relationship, with the freeze pushing both Jack and Heather to confront their past mistakes and unspoken regrets. As the world grows colder, so too does their relationship, until the very act of surviving becomes a struggle for both personal redemption and the preservation of family. The film's tone, which started with an air of scientific curiosity, has now shifted dramatically. The ice that initially seemed like an interesting anomaly is now an unstoppable force, creeping across the globe at an alarming pace. There are moments of intense action and dramatic tension, particularly as Jack's team races against time to find a way to stop the freeze, and Heather fights to protect her children from the deadly cold. The pacing of the first half of Arctic Blast is excellent, carefully balancing action and character development, with each scene naturally building on the previous one. The early conflicts and the stakes are made clear. The human race faces annihilation from a natural force that cannot be reasoned with. The scientific and human elements are blended expertly, keeping viewers engaged not just with the spectacle of the freeze but also with the characters' personal journeys. The conflict between Jack's scientific mind and his emotional turmoil over his family's safety makes his character relatable and real. Meanwhile, Heather's fight to keep her children safe mirrors the struggle of all parents in the face of an existential threat. As the film progresses, these personal conflicts will become even more critical, adding layers of complexity to the narrative. As the first half of Arctic Blast draws to a close, we are left with a world on the brink of total destruction. The cold is sweeping across the planet faster than anyone thought possible, and there is no clear solution in sight. Jack and Heather are in different places, both geographically and emotionally, and their efforts to survive are now intertwined with the fate of the world itself. The first half of the film lays a solid foundation for the rest of the story, building a sense of urgency, escalating the tension, and introducing critical emotional stakes. We are no longer just watching a disaster unfold, we are living it with these characters, feeling their fear, their hope, and their determination to survive. The stage is set for the rest of the story, and the tension is palpable. What will Jack and his team discover about the true nature of the solar storm? Will they be able to stop the freeze, or is it already too late? And what will happen when the cold reaches its apex? These questions loom large as we prepare for the next phase of the film. The first half has made it clear, this is just the beginning, and the true horrors are only starting to reveal themselves. The second half of Arctic Blast begins with the full force of nature unleashing its icy wrath upon the world. The relentless cold has already begun to ravage the planet, and humanity's fight for survival has reached its highest stakes. As we transition from the tension-filled first half, the narrative accelerates, throwing its characters into increasingly desperate situations. The emotional stakes deepen, and the action intensifies as Jack and Heather face personal and global challenges that will test them in ways they never imagined. In Antarctica, Jack Tate's initial attempts to halt the freezing catastrophe are failing. The solar storm is more powerful than anyone had anticipated, and it is quickly becoming clear that it cannot be stopped by any conventional methods. Jack's struggle with his own limitations and the overwhelming weight of the situation begins to take its toll on him. In the first half, Jack was a man driven by scientific curiosity and determination, but now, with the planet plunging into an ice age, his personal and emotional conflicts come to the forefront. His once rational thinking starts to unravel as he becomes consumed with guilt and frustration, wondering whether his research could have predicted the storm's true severity. Jack's relationship with his team begins to fray as well. What was once a group united by their collective goals now becomes a collection of individuals struggling to cope with the impossible situation they find themselves in. The harsh conditions of Antarctica create physical and emotional strain, and tensions rise as supplies dwindle and their options grow increasingly limited. Jack's scientific mind keeps working tirelessly, yet he can't seem to catch up with the speed at which the freeze is expanding. The clock is ticking, and every decision they make becomes a potential matter of life and death. One of the standout moments of this section is when Jack realizes that there is no way to stop the ice from coming. His only hope now is to find a way to reverse the damage and save as many people as possible. Meanwhile, the cold continues to sweep across the globe, and the situation becomes even more dire for Heather and their children. The freeze has escalated, and the once familiar world outside their home has become a frozen wasteland. Their small suburban community is now a desolate ghost town, where every move they make is fraught with danger. The temperature is plummeting so rapidly that even the smallest exposure to the cold is deadly. Heather, who had already been grappling with the emotional distance between her and Jack, now finds herself completely alone in her fight for survival. With no communication from Jack and no hope for help, she takes charge of her family's fate. In this section, Heather's strength and resourcefulness shine as she leads her children through the increasingly harsh landscape. Her maternal instincts become her driving force, and her determination to protect them at all costs makes her one of the most compelling characters of the film. One of the pivotal moments comes when Heather must make the heart-wrenching decision to leave behind a friend who can't keep up in the freezing conditions. As they travel from place to place, seeking shelter from the cold, Heather's emotional resilience becomes clear. She is the embodiment of the fight for survival, and her journey parallels Jack's in many ways, as both struggle with feelings of isolation and helplessness while facing a world rapidly falling apart. The dynamics between Jack and Heather are also brought to the forefront in the second half. While they have been separated geographically, their shared experiences of loss, frustration, and survival create an emotional bridge between them. Their strained relationship, which seemed beyond repair in the first half, begins to show glimpses of hope. As Jack pushes the limits of his scientific knowledge and works tirelessly to find a solution, he is increasingly haunted by the thought of his family. At the same time, Heather, despite her strength, is weighed down by the fear that she may never see her husband again. Their emotional arcs, though marked by pain and conflict, slowly begin to merge as they realize the importance of reconnecting and fighting for their loved ones. The film's tone in the second half shifts as it begins to combine high-stakes survival moments with emotional depth. The sequences are crafted to capture the overwhelming sense of dread that comes with a disaster of this magnitude, as well as the moments of humanity that flicker in the darkness. The visual effects of the growing ice sheets are breathtaking in their intensity. Frozen buildings, streets coated in thick layers of snow, and the eerie silence of a world overtaken by winter create a haunting atmosphere. The cold is no longer just a threat. It has become the central antagonist of the story, stalking the characters relentlessly and making every step they take a life-or-death decision. As the narrative progresses, Jack's team discovers a disturbing truth about the solar storm. It is not just the result of a natural phenomenon, but rather something manipulated. In a twist that catches Jack and the audience off guard, the researchers learn that the storm is artificially induced, the result of a secretive scientific experiment gone awry. This revelation adds a layer of intrigue to the plot, as it shifts the disaster from a simple act of nature to a deliberate, man-made catastrophe. Jack is forced to confront the fact that his work in Antarctica, researching solar activity, may have inadvertently contributed to the situation they now face. This revelation shakes Jack to his core and leads to a deeper exploration of his moral responsibility. It's not just about stopping the freeze, it's about facing the consequences of human interference with nature. With the knowledge that the solar storm was not purely natural, Jack begins to rethink his approach. The race to find a solution becomes even more urgent as he and his team seek out a way to reverse the effects of the storm. They begin to investigate how to trigger a counteracting process to restore the Earth's temperature. The group's journey leads them deeper into the frozen wilderness of Antarctica, where they must navigate both the brutal cold and the psychological toll of their situation. Jack's leadership is put to the test as the team faces not only physical hardships but emotional breakdowns as well. The ultimate question remains: can they undo the damage, or is it too late? The second half of the film also marks a key turning point for Heather and her children. After weeks of struggling against the elements, they find a rare moment of refuge in an abandoned military facility. This sanctuary, however, comes at a price. There are other survivors there, some of whom have succumbed to desperation. The group dynamics within the facility add a layer of tension, as trust becomes a rare commodity. Heather's leadership is again tested as she navigates this new environment, with the survival of her family depending on her ability to make difficult choices. Her character continues to evolve, shifting from a woman simply fighting to protect her family to someone who has become a leader in a rapidly disintegrating world. Her growing understanding of what it takes to survive, emotionally, physically, and morally, becomes a central theme of the film's second half. In a particularly tense moment, Heather is forced to make another difficult choice when an injured survivor threatens to jeopardize the safety of her children. This scene becomes a defining moment for her, showcasing the depth of her transformation. The cold is no longer just a force of nature, It is now something that strips away the thin layers of civility and forces people to confront who they really are when faced with survival. It's a harsh, unforgiving world, and Heather must balance her compassion with the need to protect her loved ones. This internal struggle adds complexity to the narrative, giving the film a moral weight that elevates it beyond simple action and disaster. As the world continues to freeze over, Jack's team manages to make a breakthrough, discovering a theoretical way to reverse the effects of the solar storm. However, their findings come with a bitter twist. In order to trigger this counteractive process, they must risk their own lives, and it's uncertain whether they'll be able to execute the plan in time. As the characters face these harrowing choices, the emotional weight of the narrative intensifies. It's not just about the survival of the planet, it's about the survival of the relationships that have been built over the course of the film. The emotional stakes are as high as the physical ones, with Jack and Heather's reconnection and their fight to save their family playing a crucial part in the resolution. As the film heads toward its climactic moments, the tension becomes unbearable. The temperature continues to drop, and time is running out. In a breathtaking final act, Jack and his team attempt to implement their solution, risking their lives in a final desperate effort to reverse the global freeze. The action sequences here are fast-paced and filled with suspense, as Jack races against time and the cold. Simultaneously, Heather faces her own climactic moment of choice as she must decide whether to stay in the relative safety of the military facility or venture out to reunite with Jack. The resolution of the film is a bittersweet one. Jack's team is successful in triggering the countermeasure, and the freezing process is reversed, but not without sacrifice. In the end, the film leaves viewers with a sense of closure, but also a profound understanding of the cost of survival. The world begins to thaw, but the emotional scars remain. Jack and Heather, once separated by distance and conflict, find themselves reunited in the aftermath of the crisis. They are forever changed, their relationship stronger for the trials they've endured. But the world around them will never be the same, and neither will they. The second half of Arctic Blast is a thrilling, emotional, and ultimately redemptive journey that ties together the themes of survival, family, and human resilience in the face of an overwhelming natural disaster. The characters' arcs, Jack's scientific drive, Heather's maternal strength, and the emotional bonds that develop in the face of disaster, combine to create a satisfying conclusion that resonates long after the final credits roll. What begins as a chillingly cold world gradually thaws, but the heart of the story remains the same: the strength of the human spirit in the face of the coldest, most unforgiving forces. In Arctic Blast, 2010, the film's characters are both shaped by their circumstances and deeply reflective of the themes of survival, family, and human resilience. At its core, the movie is not just about a world plunged into a deadly freeze. It's about the individuals who must confront not only the brutality of nature but their own personal demons, relationships, and sense of purpose. The characters in Arctic Blast are thrust into a desperate race for survival, but their individual journeys make the film far more than just a disaster flick. Through nuanced performances and rich character arcs, the movie explores how a crisis can shape people, forcing them to reevaluate their beliefs, their choices, and their connections to others. The central figure of Arctic Blast is Jack Tate, portrayed by Xander Berkeley, a man whose life is defined by a relentless pursuit of scientific understanding. At the start of the film, Jack is a dedicated scientist working in Antarctica, trying to unlock the mysteries of solar activity. He's methodical, logical, and emotionally distant, a man who prioritizes his work above all else. However, beneath the surface, there is a palpable sense of disconnection from his family, most notably his wife, Heather, and their children. His obsession with his work has created an emotional chasm between them, one that is only exacerbated by his physical absence from their lives. Jack's character arc is one of gradual awakening, as the dire circumstances of the solar storm and its deadly consequences force him to confront the flaws in his personal life. At the heart of Jack's journey is his internal conflict between his scientific detachment and the overwhelming emotional turmoil he experiences as the world collapses around him. In the first half of the film, Jack is consumed with finding a scientific explanation and a solution to the freeze. However, as the catastrophe grows more dire, he begins to realize that the emotional connections he has neglected are just as crucial as the technical expertise he relies on. His emotional arc comes to the forefront as he grapples with his own guilt over his family's estrangement and his growing desire to reunite with them. This arc is beautifully portrayed by Berkeley, who imbues Jack with a quiet strength, but also a deeply human vulnerability. Jack's scientific mind may have made him a hero in his field, but it is his realization of the importance of love, sacrifice, and connection that ultimately makes him a true hero in the face of the world's end. Jack's character development is intricately tied to his relationship with his wife, Heather, who is portrayed with remarkable depth and strength by the actress. Heather is, at first, a woman who has been left to manage her family alone while her husband is consumed by his work. As the movie progresses, it's revealed that the emotional distance between Heather and Jack is not just a result of his workaholism. It is a reflection of deeper, unspoken tensions within their relationship. Heather's resilience is showcased as she becomes the emotional anchor for their children in the face of the oncoming disaster. But her character arc is not solely defined by her role as a mother. As the world around her freezes, she must come to terms with her own fear, grief, and isolation. What makes Heather's character particularly compelling is her ability to transform in the face of the crisis. She is not simply a passive victim of circumstances, waiting for rescue. Instead, she takes control of her situation, making tough decisions in order to keep her family safe. Heather's growth throughout the film is both emotional and practical. In the beginning, she is portrayed as someone struggling with the distance between herself and Jack, but as the freeze spreads, she becomes a fierce protector, resourceful and courageous in ways she never imagined she could be. Heather's development mirrors that of the world around her, once frozen and still, but eventually becoming an active force that must navigate the dangers of the post-apocalyptic world. The actress brings Heather to life in a way that is both tender and strong, never allowing her to become one-dimensional. She is a mother, a wife, and a survivor, and her emotional journey adds weight to the film's themes of family, sacrifice, and redemption. The secondary characters in Arctic Blast serve to both complement and challenge the primary characters, adding layers of complexity to the story. Jack's team in Antarctica, for instance, is a group of individuals with different motivations and personal stakes. They aren't merely pawns in the disaster, but people with their own backstories, struggles, and emotional arcs that contribute to the film's depth. Among these secondary characters is Dr. Sarah Novak, a fellow scientist who works alongside Jack. She provides a different perspective on the situation, offering both emotional support and intellectual insight as Jack becomes increasingly consumed by his mission to stop the freeze. Sarah's unwavering professionalism contrasts with Jack's growing desperation, and she serves as both a voice of reason and a reminder of the personal stakes at hand. One of the film's most emotionally charged secondary characters is Captain Ray Larson, the head of the military unit that provides support to the research station. Played with quiet authority and subtle complexity, Larson represents the pragmatic side of survival, focusing on the logistical realities of navigating the rapidly deteriorating situation. While Jack is caught up in the scientific dilemma of how to reverse the freeze, Larson remains focused on keeping the team alive. As the disaster progresses, Larson's leadership and decision-making come under increasing pressure, making him a key figure in the story's exploration of moral choices in the face of extinction. His evolving relationship with Jack and the rest of the team highlights the film's central themes of human resilience, loyalty, and sacrifice. At home, Heather's children, Sam and Lily, serve as a grounding force for her character. While they are more minor characters in terms of screen time, they are essential to understanding Heather's arc. Their innocence and vulnerability in the face of disaster drive Heather's decisions and fuel her desire to protect them at all costs. Sam, the older child, exhibits an early sense of maturity, taking on a role of protector alongside his mother, while Lily is the more fragile and emotional of the two. Together, the children reflect Heather's own evolution, representing the innocence of the world that was before the freeze and the stakes of her fight for survival. Through their struggles and growth, these secondary characters enrich the central narrative, underscoring the movie's exploration of personal sacrifice, survival, and the deep bonds that tie us to one another. The film does not fall into the trap of having these characters serve as mere plot devices. Instead, each one has their own unique contribution to the unfolding drama, and each plays a part in the larger themes of the film. One of the key strengths of Arctic Blast is how the characters are not defined merely by their roles in the disaster. Jack's scientific expertise is not his sole identity, and Heather's role as a mother and wife is not all she represents. The movie does an excellent job of layering these characters, showing their weaknesses, strengths, and evolving motivations throughout the narrative. The actors' performances are instrumental in bringing this depth to life. Xander Berkeley's portrayal of Jack allows the character to remain grounded, even as his world spirals into chaos. His quiet, introspective nature makes his emotional journey believable and resonant. The actress playing Heather, too, excels in capturing the complexity of her character. A woman who, at the outset, is overwhelmed by her circumstances but gradually finds her inner strength as the world around her collapses. The tension between the scientific and emotional aspects of the story is mirrored in the performances of both lead actors. Jack's arc is propelled by his intellectual drive to fix the global disaster, but his emotional development is what truly brings the film's heart to life. Meanwhile, Heather's development is deeply emotional, as she must balance survival with the love and protection of her family. These contrasting but complementary arcs highlight the film's exploration of what it means to survive, not just physically, but emotionally and relationally. In conclusion, Arctic Blast is a film that works because its characters are not just placed in a disaster. They are forced to grow, adapt, and confront their own inner battles as the world collapses around them. The characters' arcs are deep, believable, and emotionally charged, with each one contributing something vital to the overall narrative. Through stellar performances, complex motivations, and personal growth, the characters in Arctic Blast are transformed by their environment in ways that resonate long after the film ends. Whether it is Jack's realization of the importance of human connection, Heather's evolution from survivor to leader, or the smaller yet significant contributions of secondary characters, Arctic Blast ultimately proves that survival is not just about overcoming external threats, but about finding the strength within to confront one's own weaknesses and rise above them. The characters' journeys are unforgettable because they mirror the human experience in its most vulnerable, transformative, and resilient moments. In Arctic Blast, 2010, the filmmakers infuse the film with a variety of hidden details, subtle nods, and symbolic elements that enhance the depth of the story and offer a rewarding experience for those who pay close attention. While on the surface, the film may seem like a straightforward disaster movie, beneath the surface are layers of foreshadowing, references to other works, and Easter eggs that reveal the creator's deeper intentions. These hidden gems not only add richness to the narrative, but also provide new levels of engagement for viewers who are keen to catch the subtle details embedded within the story. Let's explore some of the most interesting elements that may have gone unnoticed by casual viewers, but add a significant amount of depth to the film's experience. Foreshadowing the global freeze. Another Easter egg is found in the way the characters react to the harsh weather conditions. During several scenes, Jack and his team reference the polar vortex, a real-world weather phenomenon that brings extreme cold to parts of the northern hemisphere. This is a clever way to ground the movie in reality while also amplifying the sense of immediacy and terror. By invoking real-world scientific phenomena, the filmmakers invite the audience to consider how such an event could plausibly occur and the consequences that would follow. It's a quiet acknowledgement of how fiction and reality can sometimes overlap, making the disaster feel that much more possible. There's also a subtle nod to global warming and the political ramifications of ignoring climate science. In the early scenes, a news broadcast briefly mentions the increasing frequency of extreme weather events across the globe. This seems like a passing mention at first, but it subtly comments on the larger issue of climate change and the ways in which global warming and natural disasters intersect. While the film doesn't directly confront climate change as a central theme, this moment functions as an Easter egg for socially conscious viewers who may read between the lines to see how the filmmakers are commenting on our world's increasing vulnerability to environmental collapse. The final act and subtle clues. One of the most intriguing Easter eggs in the film appears near the climax when Jack and Heather's paths cross again. As they reunite in the midst of the global freeze, a faint, almost imperceptible musical cue plays in the background. It's a quiet, haunting melody that mirrors the iconic theme from The Road, 2009, another post-apocalyptic film about the human will to survive. This musical reference subtly suggests that, like the characters in The Road, Jack and Heather are not just surviving the elements, they are surviving the collapse of human civilization itself. The music serves as an emotional reinforcement of the personal and global stakes of their reunion, making the moment feel even more poignant for those who recognize the reference. Conclusion. In Arctic Blast, the filmmakers carefully layered hidden details, foreshadowing, and Easter eggs that deepen the film's narrative and reward attentive viewers. From symbolic motifs, such as the ice representing emotional barriers, to subtle references to other disaster films and scientific phenomena, Arctic Blast is far more than just a race against time to survive an apocalyptic freeze. It's a story filled with intricate, meaningful layers that reflect the fragility of human relationships, the unpredictable nature of the world, and the complex emotional terrain the characters must navigate. For those who catch these hidden details, Arctic Blast becomes a richer, more rewarding cinematic experience, offering a unique blend of action, drama, and intellectual stimulation. It is a film that rewards repeated viewings, revealing more of its secrets with each new exploration. Arctic Blast, 2010, may not have become a major blockbuster, but it carries a unique charm with its thrilling depiction of an unexpected global disaster. The movie's portrayal of a world plunged into a devastating freeze captured the imagination of audiences who are drawn to the unpredictability of nature and the perseverance of humanity in the face of apocalyptic challenges. While the film may appear straightforward on the surface, its production journey is filled with fascinating behind-the-scenes stories, unexpected challenges, and quirky facts that shed light on the passion and dedication that went into making it. As we delve into the intricacies of Arctic Blast, we'll uncover the fascinating facts, surprising tribulations, and the unheralded creative decisions that helped bring this chilling tale to life. The journey to creating Arctic Blast began with a concept that was both simple and ambitious. What if the Earth were to suddenly freeze due to an unprecedented solar storm? The film's script, written by Michael M. Braddock, focused on a worldwide disaster brought on by the effects of a solar disturbance, causing temperatures to plummet at an uncontrollable rate. But as with any disaster movie, the real challenge lay in translating this colossal premise into a compelling, visually engaging film. From an early stage, the filmmakers understood that the visual effects of the storm and the frozen world would be central to the film's success, and thus began a series of innovative approaches to the production that would become the heart of the movie. Unexpected challenges with special effects. Creating a film about a global freeze meant that the production team had to find ways to visually represent the devastating cold while maintaining a sense of realism. Unlike most traditional disaster films that rely on massive CGI destruction, Arctic Blast needed to evoke a chilling atmosphere, one that was both visually stunning and immersive. The filmmakers faced a particular challenge in depicting the global freeze in a way that didn't seem too fantastical. The concept of a solar storm that causes the Earth's atmosphere to freeze had to feel scientifically plausible, yet emotionally intense enough to drive the narrative forward. To achieve this, the special effects team used a combination of digital effects and practical techniques to create the illusion of a world in freezing chaos. One fascinating behind-the-scenes fact is that the crew used a technique called matte painting to create the icy landscapes. Matte paintings are often used in film to create vast, detailed backgrounds that would be too expensive or difficult to shoot practically. For example, the film's depiction of the Antarctic Research Station being overtaken by ice and snow was achieved with digital matte paintings. These paintings, while static, were combined with live-action shots to make the freeze feel like an imminent, tangible threat. It's a technique that, while old-fashioned, gave the film a certain timeless quality, blending traditional artistry with modern digital effects. While the matte paintings helped build the world of the freeze, the filmmakers had to also grapple with the challenge of creating scenes where characters interact with extreme cold without being able to shoot in actual freezing temperatures. Filming in Antarctica was out of the question, so the production team set up elaborate soundstages with extreme cold simulations using industrial chillers to replicate the freezing conditions. However, even with these methods, the filmmakers had to rely heavily on post-production effects to enhance the chill factor. On set, the cast and crew often wore multiple layers of clothing to protect themselves from the cold that was artificially created on the soundstages, and sometimes even they struggled to stay warm while filming. This gave rise to a unique camaraderie among the team, who had to adapt to the extreme cold of their artificial set while keeping the energy high to match the tense scenes unfolding on screen. Casting and character chemistry. Another fascinating aspect of Arctic Blast is the cast's dynamic and how the performances breathed life into the characters. The lead role of Jack Tate, played by Xander Berkeley, was particularly challenging due to the complex nature of the character. Jack is a scientist struggling with both the collapse of the world and the collapse of his own emotional barriers, making the role emotionally demanding. Xander Berkeley, known for his nuanced performances in both film and television, was chosen for his ability to portray vulnerability and strength in equal measure. What many might not realize is that Berkeley himself had some very personal connections to the themes of the movie. Having grown up in a family deeply invested in scientific pursuits, he found himself reflecting on the themes of isolation and the coldness of personal relationships that pervade the movie. It was this emotional understanding of Jack's arc that allowed Berkeley to give a layered, poignant performance. On the other hand, actress who played Heather brought a unique combination of emotional depth and resilience to her role. Her portrayal of Heather was one of quiet strength. At the start, she appears to be a woman defeated by her circumstances, but over time, Heather transforms into a fierce protector of her family. The chemistry between Xander Berkeley and the actress who played Heather was palpable, as both characters grapple with the disastrous events around them and their strained relationship. The two actors spent considerable time working together off-camera to develop a mutual understanding of their characters' emotional arcs. This shared effort between the two leads helped create some of the most emotionally charged moments in the film, particularly the reunion scene between Jack and Heather. The children in the film, portrayed by young actors, also contributed to the emotional undercurrent of the film. Their interactions with Heather and their emotional growth through the catastrophe provided key moments of hope amid the despair. One of the most touching moments in the movie is when Sam, Heather's older son, steps up to protect his younger sister, a role reversal that speaks to his own growth in the face of overwhelming adversity. The young actors' ability to hold their own alongside seasoned professionals was a testament to the filmmakers' attention to casting and their commitment to finding the right talent for each role. The real-life inspiration behind the solar storm. While Arctic Blast is not directly based on real-world events, it is inspired by scientific phenomena. The concept of a solar storm wreaking havoc on Earth's atmosphere is grounded in real science, and the film draws on actual fears of solar activity disrupting life on Earth. Solar storms, or coronal mass ejections, CMEs, are a natural occurrence that can have significant effects on Earth, including geomagnetic storms and even power outages. While the movie takes liberties with the severity of the storm's effects, it uses scientific knowledge to create a scenario that is grounded in the realm of possibility. This grounded sense of reality gave the film an edge over more fantastical disaster movies, and many viewers found the blend of fiction and reality to be one of the most intriguing aspects of the film. In the years leading up to the film's release, there was increasing concern among scientists and experts about the potential threat of solar storms. In 2008, for example, NASA issued warnings about the possibility of a powerful solar storm in the coming years, which could damage power grids and satellite communications. This added an element of real-world relevance to the film, and it's no surprise that the filmmakers chose to base the story around a solar storm of unprecedented scale. The decision to weave real-world scientific fears into the narrative gave the film an authenticity that resonated with viewers and sparked conversation about the potential risks posed by our dependence on modern technology. Unexpected challenges and production struggles. Despite its modest budget, the production of Arctic Blast was not without its challenges. One of the most unexpected struggles was the unanticipated delays due to weather conditions during filming. As the team was working to simulate freezing environments on set, they had to contend with actual weather conditions that, at times, proved more troublesome than the artificial cold they were creating. Snowstorms in the region where the film was being shot caused delays and set back the filming schedule, leading to frustrations among the cast and crew. The production team found themselves in a constant battle against the weather, struggling to stay on schedule while trying to maintain the film's high-quality production values. The pressure of meeting deadlines while dealing with unpredictable weather and extreme conditions created a tense atmosphere on set, but it also solidified the team's determination to bring the story to life. Additionally, there were a number of technical obstacles that the filmmakers had to overcome in order to make the film's vision a reality. The film's use of CGI and practical effects required an immense amount of post-production work, and the filmmakers were on a tight schedule to finish the film before the release date. The tight timeline meant that the crew had to work around the clock, often going without sleep in order to meet deadlines. This frantic pace of production led to moments of creative frustration, but also sparked some unexpected moments of brilliance. Some of the film's most visually striking shots, such as the climactic scenes of cities freezing over, came together at the last minute after last-minute tweaks to the special effects. Controversies and reception. While Arctic Blast didn't spark major controversies in the traditional sense, its reception was mixed, which is often the case with films in the disaster genre. Some critics praised the film for its realistic depiction of the freeze and the emotional journeys of the characters, while others criticized its pacing and reliance on scientific jargon. The film's budget constraints also led some to question the quality of its visual effects. However, for many viewers, the heart of the film lay in its character-driven plot, and it developed a small, devoted following of fans who appreciated the film's unique take on the apocalyptic genre. Interestingly, the film's portrayal of a rapidly freezing world and its emotionally resonant narrative found it a place in the growing genre of survival thrillers, often cited alongside films like The Road and The Day After Tomorrow. In retrospect, Arctic Blast is often viewed as a cult classic, with fans celebrating its exploration of human resilience in the face of overwhelming natural forces. Conclusion. From the challenges of filming in extreme cold to the clever integration of scientific phenomena, Arctic Blast holds a special place in the pantheon of disaster films. Behind the scenes, the filmmakers encountered unexpected struggles, from weather delays to the demands of creating realistic visual effects, yet their determination to tell a compelling story prevailed. The cast, crew, and special effects team all brought their expertise and creativity to bear on the project, overcoming obstacles to produce a film that, while not widely recognized in mainstream cinema, has carved out a niche for itself. With its blend of science, emotional depth, and thrilling visuals, Arctic Blast remains a fascinating example of how dedication, creativity, and teamwork can turn even the coldest, most seemingly impossible ideas into a captivating movie. In Arctic Blast, 2010, the critical moments in the narrative are not merely events in the plot but resonate emotionally and thematically, shaping both the characters' arcs and the audience's engagement with the story. These key scenes are pivotal in heightening the stakes, providing moments of catharsis, and deepening the thematic layers that the film aims to explore. Whether it's the gradual onset of the devastating solar storm or the increasingly strained emotional connections between the characters, each of these critical moments serves to intertwine personal conflict with global catastrophe. In analyzing these moments, we can better understand how Arctic Blast establishes its tone and keeps viewers engaged, building suspense while also provoking thoughtful reflection on human resilience and connection. The opening scene, a glimpse of normalcy before the storm. The film opens with a sense of quiet unease, introducing us to Jack Tate, Xander Berkeley, a scientist at an Antarctic research station, and his estranged family. Jack's world is one of scientific exploration, and the opening moments set the stage for both the physical and emotional isolation he experiences. The calm, almost serene setting of the Antarctic contrasts sharply with the chaos that will unfold, creating a sense of dramatic irony. This peaceful introduction serves as the calm before the storm, not just in a literal sense but also on a thematic level. The scene draws attention to the emotional coldness between Jack and his wife Heather, played by actress, a conflict that runs parallel to the external cold that will soon engulf the world. On an emotional level, the subtle disconnection between Jack and Heather is palpable from the outset. The tension in their relationship is illustrated not through dramatic arguments but through small, telling interactions that suggest an emotional rift. For example, Jack's lack of attention to his family and his preoccupation with his work is clear early on when he barely acknowledges Heather's concerns. This sets up the emotional arc of Jack's character. He is someone who has prioritized his scientific work over his personal relationships, and this apathy will be tested as the catastrophe unfolds. The opening sequence, while seemingly simple, sets the thematic tone of the film, foreshadowing the personal and global storms that will take place. The first turning point arrives when Jack and his team begin to realize that something is wrong with the sun. The subtle hints of the approaching disaster, such as the strange solar activity and the sudden shifts in temperature, introduce the inciting incident. These moments are critical because they transition the story from the mundane to the extraordinary, pulling the audience into the escalating stakes and creating a sense of inevitable doom. The dramatic build-up, in which the research team discovers the growing intensity of the solar storm, is both scientifically grounded and emotionally charged, as the threat to the world mirrors the disintegration of Jack's relationship with his family. The solar storm's unleashing. The world begins to freeze. Once the solar storm intensifies and begins to unleash its devastating effect on the Earth, the movie shifts from an intimate character study into full-scale disaster mode. This scene marks the moment where the tension created in the opening sequence explodes into chaos, and it does so both on a global and personal level. The cold begins to creep across the globe, freezing landscapes and killing millions, but the narrative remains focused on the emotional core of Jack and his family. The storm acts as a catalyst for action and personal growth, forcing characters to confront their fears and regrets. The making of Arctic Blast, 2010, is a testament to the passion and ingenuity of its filmmakers, whose dedication to bringing an apocalyptic freeze to the screen was driven by both creative ambition and technical challenges. This disaster film, though not as widely recognized as some of its more prominent counterparts, stands out for its unique approach to portraying the end of the world, and behind its icy veneer, there's a fascinating production story filled with unexpected hurdles, groundbreaking techniques, and moments of triumph. From the inception of the concept to the final freeze frame, the movie is a testament to creative vision, technical expertise, and collaborative effort. The conceptualization and script development. The process of creating Arctic Blast began with a simple yet profound premise. What would happen if a catastrophic solar storm hit Earth, causing temperatures to plummet rapidly and globally? Screenwriter Michael M. Braddock was tasked with transforming this scientific premise into a compelling narrative. The challenge for Braddock was twofold. First, making the science behind the solar storm accessible and believable, and second, weaving the personal struggles of the characters into the broader global crisis. The result was a story that combined scientific explanations with intimate emotional arcs, creating a narrative that was both thrilling and relatable. The film's plot, with its emphasis on family dynamics and survival, was grounded in real-world fears about solar storms. At the time of writing, there was increasing concern among scientists about the potential for a significant solar event, which would cause geomagnetic storms with the power to disrupt communications, power grids, and more. This backdrop of real-world science gave the filmmakers an opportunity to explore themes of human survival in the face of not just a disaster, but an unknown force of nature, making Arctic Blast a unique blend of apocalyptic thriller and emotional family drama. Braddock's script reflected these concerns, balancing the technical aspects of the solar storm with the personal stakes of the characters. While the science was fictionalized for cinematic effect, it was still grounded enough to give the plot an air of plausibility. The human stories, Jack Tate's quest for redemption and Heather's struggle to protect her children, were embedded within this larger narrative, ensuring that the audience could connect with the film not only on an intellectual level but also on an emotional one. Location and set design. Creating a world on the brink of freezing. One of the most challenging aspects of Arctic Blast was convincingly bringing to life the idea of a world being overtaken by a rapidly spreading freeze. The visual effects team was faced with a daunting task. They had to create an apocalyptic landscape where snow and ice were not just a backdrop but a constant, threatening presence. While the film was not shot in actual freezing conditions, after all, no one wanted to film in sub-zero temperatures for weeks, the filmmakers used a combination of practical effects, set design, and digital wizardry to create a world on the brink of being frozen solid. The production team began by constructing vast, intricate sets designed to evoke the frozen landscapes of Antarctica and other cold regions. While the script called for sweeping shots of icy vistas, it was vital that the sets felt real and lived in. The design team meticulously built large indoor sets to resemble frozen cities and research stations, using synthetic snow, ice, and frosted windows to create the illusion of a world on the brink of disaster. The challenge was not just making it look cold, but ensuring that the characters would feel truly immersed in this frozen world. To achieve this, a significant amount of effort went into creating practical snow effects that were both realistic and visually striking. One memorable anecdote from the production came when the set for the Antarctic Research Station was being constructed. The team realized that they needed to make the snow look real, which wasn't as simple as just throwing some fake snow onto the floor. After several test runs using artificial snow, the team determined that the texture didn't quite match up with real snow. The filmmakers had to experiment with different materials to achieve the perfect texture. The solution came with the use of finely ground ice pellets mixed with fake snow, which mimicked the texture of real snow under certain lighting conditions. This attention to detail ensured that the set had a level of realism that grounded the narrative, even in a fantastical premise. However, the film's icy world wasn't all about physical snow. The digital effects team also played a crucial role in creating sweeping views of frozen cities and ice-covered landscapes. Matte paintings, which are digital representations of environments that are too expensive or difficult to shoot in reality, were used to depict large, desolate frozen vistas. In addition to the matte paintings, the visual effects team integrated CGI elements to show the rapid spread of the freezing phenomenon across the globe. These digital effects were crucial in giving the audience the sense that the freeze was coming for them and would soon envelop the world. The sequence where the storm spreads rapidly across cities was one of the film's most visually ambitious moments and required months of post-production work. Special effects and creating the freeze. The special effects used to depict the freeze were central to the film's success. As the world began to freeze, the filmmakers faced the challenge of showing not just the coldness itself but the sheer devastation it would cause. One of the most innovative techniques used in the movie was a combination of practical and digital effects to create the appearance of the world's infrastructure being overtaken by ice. For instance, the research station's main control room was filled with rapidly freezing equipment and instruments. To make it look as though everything was being overtaken by ice, the filmmakers utilized practical ice and snow for smaller objects. However, for larger surfaces like walls and ceilings, CGI was employed to give the effect of ice creeping in from every corner, transforming the space into a deadly frozen tomb. The combination of practical and digital elements created a seamless effect that helped the freeze feel all-encompassing and unstoppable. One standout moment involving special effects occurs when the solar storm begins to reach its full intensity. As the storm strikes Earth, the filmmakers used high-speed cameras to capture the dramatic effects of the freezing temperatures on various objects. For example, they filmed the rapid freezing of water in mid-air, a technique that required careful timing and manipulation. When the water droplets hit the air, they froze instantly and were captured in intricate detail, providing an iconic visual representation of the storm's power. Conclusion: a blend of innovation and dedication. Behind the scenes of Arctic Blast, a fusion of creativity, technical expertise, and hard work culminated in the creation of a disaster film that was as much about emotional survival as it was about surviving the elements. From the script's emotional heart to the groundbreaking special effects that depicted the freeze, every element of the movie contributed to making the audience feel the stakes on a personal level. The production team's commitment to realism, the innovative use of special effects, and the dedication of the cast and crew helped transform a simple disaster film into a visually immersive and emotionally resonant experience. Through a combination of practical set design, cutting-edge CGI, meticulous sound design, and emotional performances, Arctic Blast managed to transport audiences into a world where the temperature drops at an alarming rate, and so does the temperature of human relationships. The technical feats achieved on set were a reflection of the filmmakers' ability to face challenges head-on, much like the characters in the film. This blend of passion, ingenuity, and perseverance is what made Arctic Blast a unique cinematic experience, showcasing the power of collaboration and the ability to turn a fantastical concept into a compelling, believable narrative. Arctic Blast, 2010, with its focus on a world thrust into a rapid freeze due to a catastrophic solar event, is not only a thrilling disaster film but also a narrative steeped in thematic depth and social commentary. Behind the immediate spectacle of the impending global collapse lies a nuanced exploration of human behavior, relationships, and survival. From the collapse of natural systems to the breakdown of human connections, the film touches on a variety of themes that resonate with real-world concerns. It's a story that goes beyond the surface level, using symbolism and allegory to engage with social issues that are both timely and timeless. The movie provides a rich tapestry for analysis, encouraging viewers to think about the broader implications of a world undergoing radical change. Through its apocalyptic scenario, Arctic Blast uses the devastating effects of a solar storm as a metaphor for several significant themes: human resilience in the face of disaster, the fragility of our planet, and the emotional coldness that can creep into relationships. But beyond these themes, the film also cleverly incorporates symbols and social commentary that reflect some of the greatest fears and challenges of modern society. In this analysis, we'll unpack the movie's deeper meanings, explore the hidden symbols within the narrative, and discuss the social commentary that gives Arctic Blast its cultural relevance. Human survival and resilience, a reflection of modern anxiety. At the heart of Arctic Blast is the theme of survival. But this isn't just about the physical struggle to endure the freeze. It's about how humans navigate emotional and psychological challenges in the face of overwhelming disaster. The film places its characters in increasingly extreme situations, pushing them to their limits, both mentally and physically. Jack Tate, Xander Berkeley, the scientist at the center of the story, begins the film as someone who is emotionally distant, more concerned with his work than with the survival of his family. But as the freeze spreads and the world descends into chaos, he is forced to confront not just the literal cold of the environment, but also the emotional distance that has defined his relationships. This focus on emotional survival speaks to a broader cultural anxiety that is prevalent in modern society. The idea that we are living in an increasingly fractured world, where individualism and technological advancements sometimes lead to isolation. Jack's initial detachment is a reflection of how many people, in our hyper-connected world, can still feel disconnected from those closest to them. The metaphor of emotional coldness becomes even more powerful when contrasted with the physical cold that threatens to obliterate everything. This dual struggle of surviving both the external disaster and internal conflict is what gives the movie its emotional weight. In this sense, Arctic Blast acts as a parable for contemporary life, illustrating the ways in which human beings, when faced with a threat of annihilation, whether natural, technological, or societal, must learn to rebuild connections in order to survive. The extreme circumstances force the characters to re-evaluate their priorities, much as individuals in real life must reassess their relationships when confronted with a crisis. The survival instinct becomes not just about protecting one's physical body but also about reconnecting with one's humanity. In a world where technology often isolates us rather than brings us together, Arctic Blast reminds viewers that true survival comes from emotional and social resilience. The fragility of the Earth, environmental concerns, and global warnings. One of the most glaring and unavoidable themes in Arctic Blast is the fragility of the Earth and its natural systems. The solar storm that causes the planet's rapid cooling is an echo of real-world scientific concerns, specifically those related to climate change, environmental degradation, and the vulnerability of the natural world to forces beyond our control. While the cause of the storm in the film is fictional, its consequences, extreme weather, the collapse of ecosystems, and widespread devastation, mirror the real dangers of climate change, which is causing increasing volatility in the world's weather systems. The film's depiction of the planet rapidly succumbing to extreme cold reflects the real-world fear of environmental collapse. It is a stark reminder of how fragile the balance of life on Earth truly is. The narrative of a single catastrophic event disrupting global systems could easily be transposed to other environmental crises, such as rising sea levels or the loss of biodiversity. The destruction in Arctic Blast is sudden and all-encompassing, serving as a cinematic manifestation of the dire consequences of neglecting environmental warnings. In this way, the film critiques humanity's disregard for the planet and serves as an allegory for the consequences of our environmental sins. The symbolism of cold in the movie is crucial here. Coldness is often seen as a symbol of death, emptiness, and inhumanity, and in Arctic Blast, it takes on these meanings in full force. The freeze isn't just a force of nature. It's a consequence of human negligence, a reflection of our collective failure to address the signs of impending ecological disaster. Just as Jack's emotional coldness isolates him from his family, so too does humanity's disregard for the Earth isolate us from the consequences of our actions. The planet, in a sense, responds in kind, turning cold and unforgiving. The film, therefore, serves as both a cautionary tale and a call to action, urging viewers to reconsider the ways in which we exploit and neglect the environment. In Arctic Blast, 2010, the cinematography, sound design, and overall visual storytelling are pivotal in immersing the audience in the frozen chaos of the film's narrative. These elements not only elevate the tension and atmosphere, but also enhance the emotional core of the story. Through deliberate camera work, lighting choices, and an effective soundscape, the filmmakers create a visual language that reflects the overwhelming force of the natural disaster, the isolation of the characters, and the emotional depth of their journey. This cinematic approach, combined with the director's unique stylistic choices, gives Arctic Blast its signature feel and adds a layer of depth that extends far beyond the script itself. The way the film conveys the magnitude of the solar-induced freeze and the ensuing chaos of a world locked in a perpetual winter is largely thanks to the careful orchestration of cinematography and sound. These elements work in harmony to paint a picture of a world under siege, where nature's wrath becomes a powerful metaphor for emotional coldness, detachment, and survival. Let's explore how these cinematic techniques are employed to enhance both the narrative and thematic depth of Arctic Blast. Cinematography, crafting a visual language for a frozen world. The cinematography of Arctic Blast is one of its most striking elements, capturing the stark and unforgiving beauty of a world plunged into an icy nightmare. From the very first frame, the film establishes a visual tone of coldness and isolation. The director's decision to use wide, sweeping shots of snow-covered landscapes emphasizes the overwhelming power of nature and the smallness of humanity in the face of such an immense disaster. These wide shots serve as a visual reminder of the vastness of the catastrophe, while close-ups of the characters highlight their emotional vulnerability amidst the crisis. A notable technique used throughout the film is the contrast between exterior shots of the desolate, snow-covered world and the more intimate, claustrophobic interiors. In the moments when the characters are confined indoors, the camera angles tend to be tighter, trapping the characters in small, almost oppressive spaces. These framing choices amplify the feeling of being overwhelmed, not just by the physical cold, but by the emotional isolation and tension that builds between the characters. As the freeze spreads across the globe, the visual space becomes tighter, mirroring the increasing restrictions on the characters' freedom and the tightening grip of the disaster. Lighting plays a crucial role in Arctic Blast's cinematographic style. Throughout the film, the lighting often reflects the emotional states of the characters and the severity of the events unfolding. In the early stages of the disaster, the lighting is often muted and gray, lending a sense of foreboding and inevitability. As the solar storm takes effect, the world seems bathed in a dim, overcast glow, which reflects both the actual weather conditions and the existential gloom that pervades the characters' lives. The lack of bright sunlight serves as a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the encroaching doom, both environmentally and emotionally. In addition, the film employs a muted color palette to reflect the cold and bleak atmosphere of the frozen world. Subdued blues and grays dominate the landscape shots, giving the world an artificial, lifeless quality. Even in indoor scenes, the cold light filters in, hinting at the coldness that has seeped into the characters' lives. This visual coldness is not merely a backdrop to the action. It serves as an emotional and thematic tool that underscores the central ideas of isolation, emotional distance, and survival. The film's use of close-up shots also plays an important role in deepening the emotional connections between the characters and the audience. When Jack Tate, the film's protagonist, is faced with moments of personal conflict or revelation, the camera often lingers on his face, capturing the subtle shifts in his expression as he grapples with his inner turmoil. This intimate cinematography helps us connect with Jack's emotional journey and makes his struggle for survival more relatable. Sound design, amplifying tension and atmosphere. In addition to the visual elements, the sound design in Arctic Blast is an essential part of the film's ability to immerse the audience in its world. The auditory experience is carefully crafted to reinforce the film's atmosphere and heighten the emotional stakes. The sound design balances the harsh, unnerving silence of the frozen world with the intense, violent sounds of the disaster unfolding. The film opens with a subtle, eerie quiet, a silence broken only by the faint whistling of wind or the distant rumble of an impending storm. This use of sound reflects the calm before the storm, allowing the audience to feel the isolation and desolation of the world before the full force of the freeze takes hold. As the solar storm intensifies, the soundscape shifts to include low, rumbling noises that underscore the planetary shift taking place. The sound of the storm is never overdone, but rather is incorporated into the film's overall sound mix to create a constant sense of unease. The muted and distant hum of impending disaster acts as a backdrop, heightening the tension without overwhelming the viewer. When the freeze begins to affect the characters directly, the sound design shifts again to reflect the cold, isolating atmosphere that now dominates their world. The sound of ice cracking, wind howling through broken windows, and the muffled sound of footsteps crunching in the snow are all subtle elements that help convey the sense of a world under siege by nature. The quiet hums of the solar storm are often drowned out by these sharp, sudden noises, symbolizing the way nature's power has erupted violently into the lives of the characters. In more intimate moments, the sound design shifts to focus on dialogue and character interaction. These scenes often feature more muted, soft sounds, rustling clothing, the faint clink of a cup or glass, and other small noises that draw the viewer's attention to the emotional exchanges between the characters. This subtle contrast between the loud, overwhelming sounds of the disaster and the quiet, intimate sounds of human connection underscores the dual struggle at the heart of the film. Survival against an indifferent natural force and the emotional struggles of individuals trying to hold on to what makes them human. The music in Arctic Blast also plays a key role in the film's emotional resonance. The score, while minimalistic, is used to great effect in underscoring the most dramatic and intimate moments. The haunting strings and ambient tones heighten the sense of isolation, while moments of quiet melody serve to draw attention to the characters' internal conflicts. This blend of sound and music helps deepen the emotional impact of the film, making every twist and turn feel more immediate and intense. Editing and pacing, building tension and climax. The editing in Arctic Blast contributes significantly to the pacing and the building tension throughout the film. The director and editor make smart use of cross-cutting between different storylines, allowing the audience to follow the parallel struggles of various characters as the freeze intensifies. This not only helps maintain momentum but also emphasizes the idea that the disaster is a global event that affects everyone, regardless of their location or personal struggles. In terms of pacing, the film strikes a careful balance between action sequences and quieter, more reflective moments. The pacing of the disaster itself mirrors the characters' emotional journeys. In the beginning, there is a slow build-up, as characters begin to notice strange weather patterns and the first signs of the approaching freeze. This gradual build-up creates a sense of unease, which escalates as the solar storm begins to take hold. The editing allows the tension to mount slowly, with brief moments of action or discovery that punctuate the quieter scenes. The film's climax is marked by frenetic editing, with rapid cuts between characters in various stages of crisis. The chaos is reflected in the editing choices, with moments of disorientation as the characters scramble to survive. This high-energy sequence provides a sharp contrast to the earlier, slower-paced portions of the film, heightening the emotional stakes and giving the audience a visceral sense of the danger the characters face. Unique stylistic choices. The director's vision. Director Name brings a unique vision to Arctic Blast, using stylistic choices that blend traditional disaster movie tropes with more nuanced, character-driven storytelling. One of the most distinctive features of the film's visual language is the interplay between the external cold and the internal emotional landscapes of the characters. The director uses the freeze not just as a physical force but as a reflection of the emotional states of the characters, allowing the cinematography and sound design to serve as metaphors for their internal struggles. The decision to incorporate both sweeping, wide-angle shots of the frozen world and intimate, close-up shots of the characters in peril reflects the duality at the heart of the film. The vast, impersonal cold of nature contrasts with the personal, intimate coldness that exists between the characters. This thematic parallel is enhanced by the director's choice to use quiet, reflective moments in between the action scenes, allowing the audience to connect with the characters on a deeper level. Additionally, the director's use of practical effects for the ice and snow creates a tangible realism that immerses the audience in the disaster. The actors are often seen battling the elements in real, physical snow and ice, adding a sense of authenticity to the film. This commitment to practical effects, combined with the visual design choices, ensures that the disaster feels grounded in reality, even as the stakes become increasingly apocalyptic. Conclusion. The power of visual storytelling in Arctic Blast. In Arctic Blast, the integration of cinematography, sound design, editing, and unique stylistic choices creates a powerful visual language that amplifies the emotional and thematic depth of the film. The camera work, lighting, and sound all serve to reinforce the overarching story of survival, isolation, and human resilience. The director's vision, reflected through these cinematic techniques, creates an immersive experience that pulls the audience into the world of the film, allowing them to feel the weight of the disaster both externally and internally. Through these methods, Arctic Blast transcends its disaster movie roots, offering a rich tapestry of visual and auditory storytelling that reinforces the emotional heart of the film. It is through these techniques that the narrative's tension is heightened, the themes are deepened, and the characters are made more real and relatable. The cinematic craftsmanship in Arctic Blast ensures that, even in a world of snow and ice, the film remains a compelling, emotionally resonant journey. In any film, the chemistry between the cast and the interactions that occur behind the scenes often play a crucial role in shaping the film's tone, performances, and overall impact. Arctic Blast, 2010, is no exception. The dynamic between the actors, their collective commitment to the story, and the behind-the-scenes camaraderie helped elevate the film and make it more engaging for audiences. What's fascinating about the making of Arctic Blast is how the challenges of shooting in harsh conditions and the unique nature of the storyline forced the cast and crew to bond in ways that deepened their performances and allowed for moments of raw authenticity. These interactions and the spirit of teamwork are not just limited to the set. They translated into the emotional weight and nuance of the final product, enriching the film. Moreover, understanding how Arctic Blast was received upon release and how its audience perception has evolved over time sheds light on the lasting impact the film has had. From the initial buzz leading up to its release, to the mixed reactions and retrospective analysis, the audience's reception was far from uniform, but it adds another layer of richness to the film's journey. By taking a look at both the cast's chemistry and the audience's response, we can gain a fuller appreciation of how Arctic Blast has found its place in the cinematic world. Cast chemistry and how it enriched the performances. When Arctic Blast first hit theaters and on-demand platforms in 2010, it was met with mixed reviews. While the premise of a world plunged into eternal winter intrigued many disaster movie fans, the film's reception was divided. Some critics praised the performances, particularly those of Purcell and Seberg, and noted that the film had a certain emotional weight that set it apart from typical disaster films. The tension between the characters, along with the film's ability to tap into global concerns about climate change, offered a fresh take on the genre. However, others felt that the film didn't fully live up to its potential. While the disaster movie elements were thrilling, some felt that the film's slower pace, especially in the first half, diluted the sense of urgency and tension that the premise promised. Additionally, the budget constraints were visible in some of the CGI and special effects, which detracted from the immersive experience for some viewers. Critics argued that the film could have gone further in exploring the psychological and emotional impacts of the freeze on the characters, rather than focusing so heavily on the scientific aspects. Despite this, Arctic Blast developed a dedicated following. Many fans appreciated the film for what it was: an accessible, emotional, and entertaining disaster movie. The performances were widely regarded as a highlight, and the intimate approach to storytelling set the film apart from other disaster films that often relied on spectacle over character development. It found a niche audience in home entertainment, where it garnered a cult following thanks to its focus on character-driven drama, long-term audience reaction, and retrospective appreciation. Over time, Arctic Blast has found an appreciative audience, particularly among fans of more understated disaster films. As the years have passed, viewers have begun to see the film in a more favorable light, with many re-evaluating its emotional depth and the strength of its performances. The film's ability to focus on the personal rather than just the catastrophic has become one of its standout features in retrospective reviews. The chemistry between the leads, especially Purcell and Seberg, is now recognized as a central reason for the film's enduring appeal. One interesting aspect of the film's long-term reception has been its use as a touchstone for discussions about environmental disaster movies. With the increasing focus on climate change in popular media and politics, Arctic Blast has gained renewed interest as a cautionary tale about the devastating consequences of human actions on the planet. While it may not have been a major box office hit at first, the film has found a second life in these discussions, with viewers now taking a deeper look at the social and environmental commentary embedded within the narrative. Social media discussions and fan forums often highlight the film's lesser-known merits, including its underrated performances and the underlying themes of survival and human resilience. Fans also appreciate the film's ability to provide a sense of intimacy within a global-scale disaster, making it a more relatable and emotionally resonant experience compared to other films in the genre. Conclusion: the enduring impact of Arctic Blast. Arctic Blast remains a fascinating case study in how cast chemistry, behind-the-scenes camaraderie, and audience reception can shape a film's legacy. The chemistry between the lead actors, bolstered by their off-screen friendships and collaboration, was essential in bringing the emotional heart of the film to life. Behind the scenes, the shared challenges of shooting in freezing conditions brought the cast closer together, and this sense of unity translated into genuine on-screen connections that resonate with viewers. Though the film had a mixed reception upon release, over time it has gained a more appreciative audience, with fans coming to value its character-driven narrative, emotional stakes, and timely social commentary. The film's enduring impact shows how, even in the face of icy destruction, human connections are what truly define our survival. Arctic Blast, 2010, is a film that, at first glance, may not appear to have had a massive impact on mainstream cinema, but upon deeper reflection, its influence on its genre and the way it resonates with audiences and critics is undeniable. While it may not have racked up a slew of prestigious awards or been a critical darling upon its release, the film's legacy is deeply woven into the fabric of environmental-themed disaster cinema and stands as a testament to the power of character-driven stories within the disaster genre. By examining how the movie impacted its genre, the cultural conversation, and the broader landscape of cinema, we can appreciate the lasting importance of Arctic Blast in both film history and popular culture. Genre influence and the shifting landscape of disaster movies. Disaster films have long been a staple of Hollywood, but Arctic Blast carved out its own niche in a subgenre that wasn't always defined by over-the-top special effects and apocalyptic action sequences. While films like Twister, 1996, The Day After Tomorrow, 2004, and 2012, 2009, were typically characterized by large-scale spectacles and CGI-heavy destruction, Arctic Blast brought a different sensibility to the genre. It focused more on the human element in the face of a global catastrophe, using the impending freeze to heighten emotional stakes and test the resolve of its characters. By offering an intimate look at survival through the lens of relationships, grief, and hope, Arctic Blast helped push the genre into a more nuanced direction. In the years following its release, the film's influence could be seen in the way disaster movies began to shift toward more character-focused narratives. In particular, films like Frozen, 2010, though thematically very different, drew inspiration from Arctic Blast's combination of environmental disaster with a strong human emotional core. The film demonstrated that viewers did not need grandiose effects and flashy destruction to be engaged in a disaster story. Instead, what mattered was the emotional stakes and how the characters reacted under pressure. The film's quieter, more reflective moments also prefigured the rise of smaller disaster films that focused less on global devastation and more on personal survival and the relationships that emerged during times of crisis. Moreover, Arctic Blast was part of the growing trend of films that use environmental disasters as metaphors for larger societal issues. The solar freeze in the movie, while fictional, could easily be seen as an allegory for the dangers of climate change and the growing environmental concerns facing the world. In this sense, Arctic Blast can be viewed as a precursor to films that would use environmental catastrophes to engage with real-world issues, such as Snowpiercer, 2013, or The Fifth Wave, 2016, where nature's wrath becomes a reflection of human folly. The film's treatment of the natural world as both an antagonist and a force of reckoning made it a precursor to this broader trend. In the decades that followed, Arctic Blast has influenced not just films within the disaster genre, but also other genres in which climate and environmental issues have been explored. Its place in the discourse about global warming has only grown more pronounced over time, as public awareness of climate change has risen. Arctic Blast planted a seed for these future stories, showing that environmental disasters could be explored on a smaller, more intimate scale without losing the genre's trademark tension and spectacle. Lasting impact on audiences and criticism. When Arctic Blast was released, critics and audiences were divided. Some found its premise compelling and its emotional stakes high, while others criticized it for its pacing and reliance on familiar disaster tropes. However, over the years, the film has gained a following among fans who appreciate its subtlety, character-driven approach, and its exploration of human relationships in the face of overwhelming odds. Its impact on audiences has been steady, with the movie finding a second life in niche markets, particularly through streaming platforms and DVD rentals. The film's strong emotional core, despite its modest budget and somewhat limited special effects, is what has earned it lasting recognition. It stands out in the disaster genre for the way it focuses on the psychological toll the cataclysmic event takes on the characters, rather than on the event itself. Viewers connect with the human drama and the survival instincts of the characters, making Arctic Blast resonate on a deeper level than typical action-heavy disaster films. The emotional depth of the story has allowed it to continue to build a cult following years after its release. Another factor in the film's lasting impact is its exploration of climate change, which remains an urgent issue in contemporary society. Although Arctic Blast is a fictional story, the themes it touches upon, unforeseen environmental catastrophes and the devastating impact of humanity's disregard for nature, have only grown more relevant in the years since its release. As conversations surrounding global warming and the fragility of the environment have intensified, Arctic Blast has seen a resurgence in cultural discussions as a cautionary tale. It speaks to the rising concerns about the unpredictability of climate change and serves as a reminder of the importance of addressing environmental issues before they spiral out of control. The film's impact on the academic and critical landscape has also been significant. It has become a point of reference in discussions about the intersection of environmentalism and genre cinema. Film scholars and critics have examined Arctic Blast through the lens of environmental storytelling, analyzing how the film uses natural disaster to explore broader themes of survival, resilience, and responsibility. By framing the narrative around an impending solar freeze, the film presents nature as a force of chaos that is ultimately beyond human control. This message resonates deeply in an era where climate-related disasters are becoming more frequent and severe. Industry reception and achievements. While Arctic Blast may not have made waves in the mainstream award circuit, it did receive praise for its ambitious blending of disaster and human drama. Critics who recognized the film's emotional depth saw it as a potential game-changer for the genre. In particular, the performances of the lead actors, such as Dominic Purcell and Xenia Seberg, were widely regarded as strong points. Purcell's portrayal of Jack Tate, the grief-stricken protagonist who must come to terms with both the literal and emotional coldness of the world, is often singled out as a standout in disaster film performances. The film did not garner major industry accolades or top-tier awards, but it did find a space in the growing niche of eco-thrillers and smaller disaster films that prioritize character development over spectacle. It quietly carved out a legacy by influencing films that came afterward, such as The Wave, 2015, and The 33, 2015, which also strive for more human-scale depictions of disaster rather than emphasizing large-scale global destruction. These films, though different in terms of plot, shared Arctic Blast's focus on people, relationships, and emotional growth amidst catastrophe. In the years following its release, Arctic Blast was also embraced by the television networks and streaming services that specialize in cult films, such as the Sci-Fi Channel, which had a long history of airing disaster-oriented films with modest budgets and offbeat premises. This new wave of cult classics kept Arctic Blast in the conversation and allowed it to be rediscovered by audiences seeking out offbeat gems in the disaster genre. These platforms kept the film relevant, providing a place for new audiences to experience it, discuss it, and share it with others. The film found a place in online forums and fan communities dedicated to environmental disaster narratives, helping to keep the conversation about the movie alive and growing. Reflection on Arctic Blast's legacy. As we look back on the cultural legacy of Arctic Blast, it is clear that the film's significance goes beyond its initial reception. Though it was not a critical or commercial powerhouse upon its release, it has grown into a significant entry in the disaster film canon, shaping the genre in meaningful ways. Its influence can be seen in subsequent disaster films that embrace more intimate, character-driven narratives. The way Arctic Blast approached the environmental disaster theme, embedding it into the personal stories of its characters, set the stage for a more thoughtful exploration of climate-related issues in the genre. Moreover, Arctic Blast stands as a reminder of how even smaller, modestly budgeted films can make an impact on audiences and culture. While it may not have won major awards or earned widespread recognition, it remains an essential piece of the environmental disaster film subgenre. Over time, its themes have only grown more relevant, and its legacy as a precursor to the climate-conscious narratives of later years is something that filmmakers and audiences will continue to reflect on for years to come. In the grander scheme of cinematic history, Arctic Blast will likely be remembered as one of those films that didn't make an immediate splash but steadily built its reputation through the years, gaining respect for its character-driven narrative, thematic depth, and exploration of humanity in the face of nature's wrath. The movie's influence on both the disaster genre and environmental storytelling cannot be overstated, and its legacy will continue to be felt in the films and discussions that follow. Whether it's through its strong performances, its thematic relevance, or its understated yet powerful narrative, Arctic Blast is a film that has earned its place in cinematic history and will continue to leave its mark on both the genre and popular culture. Arctic Blast, 2010, may have initially flown under the radar for many, but over the years, it has proven itself to be a film with depth, complexity, and a lasting influence on the disaster genre. What makes it stand out in a sea of disaster films is the way it balances the catastrophic elements of nature's power with intimate, human-driven storytelling. By focusing on characters and their emotional arcs amidst an unprecedented environmental event, Arctic Blast offers more than just a spectacle of destruction. It gives us a meditation on survival, relationships, grief, and the unpredictability of the world around us. At its heart, the film tells a story that feels deeply personal despite the global catastrophe unfolding. While many disaster films emphasize grand-scale destruction and thrilling action sequences, Arctic Blast takes a more subdued and thoughtful approach. The solar freeze that threatens to plunge the Earth into an unrelenting winter serves as both a literal disaster and a symbolic one, a reflection of humanity's inability to control its environment and a reminder of the fragility of life. This environmental catastrophe becomes a backdrop for the profound emotional struggles of its central characters, led by Jack Tate, Dominic Purcell, whose journey is one of redemption, reconciliation, and survival. One of the key strengths of Arctic Blast is its character-driven narrative. Jack's arc is at the core of the film, and as the plot unfolds, we watch him not only battle the encroaching freeze but also confront his past and his personal demons. The emotional weight carried by Purcell's portrayal of Jack is a testament to how disaster films can explore complex human emotions without sacrificing the tension and excitement of the genre. This depth of character development is a standout in a genre that often relies on spectacle over substance. Additionally, the performances of the supporting cast, including Xenia Seberg as the intelligent and resourceful scientist, and John Rhys-Davies as the grizzled but wise character trying to steer the group to safety, further enrich the film. Their interactions and the way they navigate the escalating crisis help elevate the narrative, reminding us that disaster is often less about the event itself and more about how people respond to it. The chemistry between the characters and the way they work together in the face of the unknown enhances the emotional stakes and brings the audience into the story. The visuals of Arctic Blast, while not as grandiose as some of the more heavily CGI-dependent disaster films, are no less effective in conveying the cold, desolate nature of the world on the brink of destruction. The film uses its limited budget to create a bleak, atmospheric environment that reflects the inner turmoil of the characters. The cinematography captures the sweeping vastness of the ice-covered world, juxtaposing the sprawling landscapes with the claustrophobic tension inside the characters' shelters. The use of lighting and sound design also plays a key role in enhancing the film's overall atmosphere. The cold, isolating environment is expertly evoked through sound, with the howling wind and the subtle creaks and groans of frozen structures amplifying the sense of danger and impending doom. Despite its smaller scale, Arctic Blast doesn't shy away from the spectacle of destruction. The visual effects, while modest by Hollywood standards, still convey the gravity of the looming disaster, and the frozen landscapes are depicted with a chilling realism that keeps the audience engaged. The film may not have had the budget for massive citywide destruction like in The Day After Tomorrow or 2012, but the sense of tension and the looming dread of what might come is felt just as strongly. This is a film that is as much about the emotional and psychological journey of its characters as it is about the physical destruction happening outside their windows.